Hei og velkommen til Hvorfor Norge. Mitt navn Cécile Moroni. Jeg superglad til å sitte med en ny gjest I dag. And I will turn to my perfect English with this horrible French accent. I hope you'll forgive me. I sit here with Gabriella from Norway. Hi, Gabriella.
Hi, Cécile. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super happy that you could come too. I'm a bit starstruck on you, sorry, but I'm sitting here with an impressive guest because you come to Norway. It's not that long ago that you came, right?
No, so April was 2 years that I've lived in Oslo, and I spent about 5-6 months in Stavanger several years ago as well.
Exactly. Okay, so let's say that it's 2.5 years ago, and you already have managed to help many other foreigners to unlock Norway with your tips and your videos on Instagram. That's how I heard about you, so I'm super happy that you're here. This podcast is usually in Norwegians, for Norwegians, but most Norwegians I know are annoyingly good at English, better than French people, and so it's super nice that we can have this episode with you. But do you speak Norwegian, Gabriella?
I've been learning Norwegian. I'm at a B1 level, but it's much easier for me to understand than it is to speak, which is, I guess, the common problem with learning languages.
Of course,
don't test me on anything.
I won't. I promise I won't. But you have a very interesting background because when I did research, it stands you are from the US, but you're also from Poland, and you lived in all the corners of the world. I mean, Dubai and Belgium and Denmark. Wow.
Yeah.
Many lives in one life. So where are you originally from? What's your origin country?
Yeah, so I was born in the US, but my family is 100% Polish.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Polish-speaking household and kind of had this mixture of both US and Polish cultures growing up. I traveled a lot. And then my parents also moved a lot for work. And so my family moved around.
What do they work with?
U.S. government.
Oh, okay. Wow. So they are Polish, like super integrated into the U.S.
Yes. Yeah. My mom moved to the U.S. when she was 8. Then when she was visiting Poland as an adult, she met my dad.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
So that's a summer souvenir she brought home to the US.
Yeah, I guess so. And then a few years later, a little baby souvenir as well.
So do you have many siblings?
Nope, just me.
Just you. Oh, that's quite cool. Where did you grow up in the US?
Chicago.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Which has quite a large Polish population.
Does it? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not sure you can fact check the statistics, but I've also heard that it's like the most Polish people outside of Warsaw, basically. But by lineage, so I think a lot of Americans like to say like, oh yeah, I'm Polish, and it's really like 1/4 or something like that.
Sometimes Americans are annoying about this. My sister, so I have one sister and she lives in the US too. She moved more than 20 years ago. Now she lives in Texas, Dallas. She's become quite American. Her kids are Americans. She speaks English at home. And it's quite fun because we've been to this Scottish celebration in Texas once, and people were wearing kilts and were like all in, which is for us Europeans surprising that they would desperately almost find for their roots and identity. And there was this very friendly, like, super Texan guy speaking with this very Texan accent, like, yeah, my great-great-grandfather was Scottish, so for me it's important to celebrate Scotland. But it's quite cute, but it's fascinating how they seem to be so proud about having like a fourth, sometimes even less than 10% roots from one country.
Yes.
But so you are Polish from the US, can you say that? You have both caps on your heads, right? You know well the Polish culture and you know well the American culture.
Yeah, and the difficulty is that you fit into neither in that way.
Very recognizable. But okay, so, and that's love who brought you to Norway, right?
Yes, that's correct. My boyfriend is Norwegian. I was doing 1 semester in Stavanger 6 years ago now during my master's degree, and we met there when he was also
That's a family thing, traveling and meet love when you are abroad.
Yeah, I guess so. I got it from my mama. And yeah, so we met and we've been together since, and we also kept up the tradition of moving around. We lived together in Germany, Denmark, Lithuania, and then he got a job in Oslo. So we decided to kind of, in a way, settle down here, even though I really enjoy living in Norway. I just can't imagine spending the rest of my life in only one place.
Yeah.
Whatever the place is.
I know.
Yeah.
But life is still long. and in front of you. Where is he from in Norway?
From the south, not too far from Oslo.
Okay, because my husband is from Vestfold. So I would recommend anyone who listens to us, the guy from Vestfold, they are the best.
Okay, interesting, because
he's not from Vestfold?
My boyfriend's from Telemark.
Oh yeah,
so there's a little bit, he's from the original Telemark, he likes to say.
You're so nice, guys.
And it's also a gorgeous area.
Yeah.
We've spent a bit of time driving through Telemark, and it's not the typical places in Norway that, you visit. It's not the West Coast. It's not the North.
No, it's true. No.
But, it's gorgeous around around that whole area. I really like it.
So you come to Norway and you suddenly start this account that became very impressive because you managed to create a whole community. So you basically, actually what you did as a ex-marketeer, you found a white spot on the market that was not covered by anyone before and tried to unlock with tips and tricks about how to understand life in Norway, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit about the journey about this Unlock Norway project?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of started as an idea formulating in my head for a little while. I'm a communications professional.
Okay.
I work with social media, marketing, PR, communications in general. And so I think I have this instinct in me to communicate things. So it started kind of slowly formulating as this idea where I knew that because I had moved here with a partner who is Norwegian, I had access to a lot of different information that other people did not have access to. So for example, there was one point that I really remember thinking, okay, I really just need to start sharing something. I need to start a page or something like this, was when I was working at this startup when I first moved to Norway, and I was having a conversation with some of my international colleagues. And I don't know if you would remember, but like a year ago, February, there was some news, that the grocery stores were raising prices and in all the major grocery store chains. And I had kind of mentioned this to them, and they were like, wait, what? The grocery, what? And money is, obviously such a big deal, especially if you're not from such a country that has such a high cost of living as Norway. And they didn't know about this information. And meanwhile, my boyfriend had started stocking our fridge with salmon. And we just had salmon.
This is so Norwegian.
Seriously,
it's
frozen salmon for weeks, right? Okay. Stocked up in the freezer. And that's when I kind of realized that already I felt very lucky through my boyfriend, through his family who's been very supportive, through his friends and the network he has already. I've met Norwegians and I've gotten to know some more of the culture and fun facts and things that are just nice to know, hey, we're sitting on the tram next to a celebrity, right? Just fun things that you wouldn't know about otherwise. But actually I realized that beyond having fun facts and cool information that make living in Norway more fun for me, I also had access to some kind of information that
that can be very. I have one video of you. I'm not sure. Now I'm trying to fulfill your sentence, and I don't want to jump in what you were about to say. But some things can be life-changing in small details. I have one example: the video where you show what they call brodder, which are spikes that you can put under your shoes. I struggled a lot to walk outside in winter, and it might be very hilarious for Norwegians to listen to, but I had no idea about these spikes. And when I saw your video, I remembered. So now I've been in Norway for more years, obviously. I remember that's one of my colleagues who showed that to me, a very nice Norwegian person. And for me, it was like, she's so right to show this, because probably some people have no idea that they can buy those. And they might be a game changer if you are carrying a lot of weight or pushing a stroller in the ice. I mean, this is game changer. 30 seconds video, you help thousands of people to tackle the everyday life better, right? So it's very nice.
Yeah.
It's not only the fun, it's also the practical and the useful, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so exactly when it comes to things like that, it's not just about, it would be nice to walk better, but it's if you don't have bikes on your shoes, you can slip and fall and seriously injure yourself. Yeah. And if you don't know that prices are rising, or if you're not using Trumf membership to save money on your groceries and you think everything is so expensive, or if you don't know that Kiwi has buy one, get one free on menstrual products.
Yeah.
These things can not only make living in Norway more enjoyable, but you're completely change your experience here.
Absolutely. Now, Gabriella, you are also the one of the faces of the channel Visit Norway.
Yeah, that's. I guess you've seen some videos from that.
Exactly. I've seen you sky jumping.
Yes. Oh my gosh. They have been sending me and my co-host Tobias to do some things in Norway that I never would have signed up for normally, but it's been an amazing experience. Yeah.
So cool. Tell us a bit, what was your strangest experience with Norwegians outdoor, or wildest experience outdoor in Norway? Do you have an example?
Recently, for a Visit Norway filming trip, we did Via Ferrata. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Via Ferrata.
Yeah, please explain.
It's Italian for Iron Path or Iron Way. And it's, I guess, a way of like climbing and being on mountains in a more safe way, because they drill into the mountain like iron footholds or build ladders. And then there's also cool things like bridges and zip lines in between mountains. And this is like a popular activity that people do in the Alps, but also there's several places in Norway where you can do this Via Ferrata. So Visit Norway, of course, wanted to show this super cool experience and sent us to go up this mountain. And I had, Googled it, and it's like, wow, crazy view. You're super high up. But like it's a ladder, there's some footholds. I can do this, right? I'm not too afraid of heights or anything. And we started. It was a tough experience. I was not prepared that we would literally be climbing a mountain. And so what it is you're attached you have two carabiners, and then there's like a line, a cable, and metal rungs every 1 to 3 meters. And you literally are pulling and climbing yourself up the mountain.
Towards the next level?
Yeah. Towards
the next iron...
Yes, to the next bolt.
Okay, yeah,
and then you unclip one, clip it above the bolt, and then when you're secure on two, you unclip the other. And so you're always kind of attached. But we hiked up to about 400 meters, and then we climbed up the next 600 or 700 meters.
Oh my God, this is enormous.
Yes, and I was completely unprepared. And it was a very, very scary experience because, and I think with one thing is skydiving. We went skydiving as well with Visit Norway, and that almost felt like a roller coaster in a way, because you attach yourself to somebody
you're not
and
responsible
you just jump.
for anything.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this was kind of also like I had to rely on my own strength and endurance to pull myself up a mountain.
And how do you climb down?
On the way, once you get to the top, there's a cable car that you can take down.
Jesus.
But that was the issue, is that once I started and realized how difficult it was, you can't go down. There's only one way to go. Yeah.
Were people queuing behind you?
No, I was last. the guy put me at the end.
Oh my God.
So
you had a guide.
You
had a guide.
Yes, you have to have a guide. Yeah. And the guide said like the place where we were, Luen, was the hardest Via Ferrata in Norway, and is basically just rock climbing. So it was very scary. Yeah. But maybe
You're so cool. You're more outdoors than Norwegian. Wow.
Yeah, I think through this Visit Norway experience, I've also gotten to do and see a lot of the country that other people don't necessarily get to see.
I know.
But which is so incredible, because I think for me, when I live in a place, and I've lived in a lot of places, I always want to travel around and do so many other things. So yeah, I would really encourage more people to go out and see what Norway has to offer.
Exactly. It's funny because for me, so I grew up in an apartment in Paris where we were very little outdoor, with a lot of other things that I've loved, but not nature was not part of the equation. And so it's fun because for me, already like sitting, on this strange stuff that they call sit in the log in the woods and eating sausages, I feel like I stretch already. Like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is into the wild. Whereas you can still see the tram driving around.
Yeah, I think the outdoors is one big area that Norwegians and, maybe outdoorsy people can very easily take for granted that internationals have so many questions about. And for me, of course, I've always liked hiking. In the US, we have a lot of national parks and, there's a lot of nature. But coming to Norway, it was something actually completely different. And I guess that's part of like the friluftsliv, that like nature is just part of your everyday life and being outside is part of everyday life. And I think that having spoken to so many people in the international community, that's something, there's still quite a hump for people to get over before they start to really experience Norwegian nature. So, for example, my questions and concerns from the very beginning are like, okay, everyone says, oh, in Oslo, you just go out into the forest. Marka is right there. Just go hike, right? And it's like, cool, but like, how do I get there and which path do I take and how do I find the paths? Are there apps? Are there websites? What do I wear? What do I bring with me?
The clothing part is so important because I've learned so much. It sounds strange because I came as an adult in Norway. I was 26 already, but I've learned so much. And after having kids also, you learn how to dress your babies in the winter. But it's something that you have to learn as a child. I mean, if you haven't, then you need help to understand.
Yeah, there's so many questions. And I think those were even my kind of questions and concerns as somebody who was prepared to just let's go into the forest and hike. But then there's also people, I was talking with somebody recently and she was like, what? You can just walk into the forest? Like, there's not wild animals and stuff there, because where she's from, the forest or the can be dangerous. And so there is just like this huge like learning curve when you move to Norway.
What are your projects continuing on? Do you have like big goals or ambition with Unlock Norway? How do you see the journey continuing?
I'm not sure yet. It's still something I'm figuring out. I was not expecting it to have grown this much. Yeah. So when I started it, it was just kind of like a pet project, thinking if I post about something interesting, maybe it'll inform a few people or something like that. But the positive response has been very overwhelming. But in that way, it also adds a little bit of pressure on me, I think, as well. And so I've kind of had to deal with overthinking about what am I posting and all of these things. So I'm really still in this phase of figuring out what I want to do with the...
That's quite cool. But you're still in Norway with us for a few time, right? You're not going to leave Norway soon.
I don't have any immediate plans to leave.
Ah, cool. Okay. But life is long and you've traveled so much already. So, do you have any anecdotes where you felt a little bit outsider and then suddenly you realize afterwards, I should have known that. That would have helped.
Mm-hmm. I think, actually, there's been several instances where, you're invited to like a house party or you're in a room with a lot of Norwegians. And of course, suddenly the language switches to Norwegian. And I think that that's something that surprised me in a way, because as you say, Norwegians to a very high degree speak very good English compared to a lot of other places that I lived. And I didn't expect language to be such a key to feeling included and welcome in a space. And so, there have been instances where, suddenly you're the odd one out because everybody has switched to a different language. And it's a really difficult feeling to have, because on the one hand, you think, oh, I would like them to switch to English so that I can participate. But if they are speaking in a language that's not their own, then they're not going to be super comfortable. And maybe they're not going to have the best time that they wanted to have at this party.
Yeah.
But if they speak Norwegian and they're having a great time, then I'm not.
Yeah.
And so I have felt at times where I'm like, maybe I just shouldn't even be here and let everyone have fun. And then neither of us are feeling this, tension.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been a really interesting lesson and surprise that language was so key in Norway.
For me, what was surprising when I came is that one thing is learning the language, another thing is navigating all the dialects and all the slang words that I still figure out sometimes to learn. Yesterday I was talking to a friend and he told me keg, and I was like, what is keg? And he was like, oh, you should know this word. Apparently it's a guy who is very showing off a lot of money. Like he drinks champagne from a bottle. He has a yacht. He's keg. I'm a keg. So I'm still learning after 14 years. But the most difficult part was the dialects. I mean, come on, you go to another part of the country and there is people are talking to you and they were like, this is not what I've learned in the Norwegian lessons. It's not part of the deal. Because you learn almost to speak as you write. Yeah, I remember that one of the first sentences I learned was hi, jeg heter Sue, jeg engelsk. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm not going to be able to use that one, but it was extremely proper Norwegian, almost a talking book model. No one talks like that, right? So for me, it was this people saying me, kom og sjå, kjem og sjå, which means come and see. But this is not, it's not. I was really confused at the beginning. I was like, what is this about? Can you just gather 5 million people and agree on one grammatic? So confusing.
Yeah, but I guess that really shows the not so long ago history of Norway. Yeah. That there was people spread out so much, and there's one person on this mountain and another person on this mountain, and they developed their own dialect,
so they couldn't cross each other.
And they would there was no zip line between the mountains, and so they would meet maybe once a year to do their trade or share some news or whatever, and the language really developed into its own ways, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting. When Americans ask you how is life in Norway, what do you usually put forward in terms of what are the aspects of your life in Norway that Americans are interested to hear about or would find exotic or different from their life in the US?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the main things that people know about Norway and think about Norway are the social welfare, the high taxes, free education, free healthcare, those kind of things,
okay.
Which are very different than in the U.S. And
even Illinois?
Yeah. And Chicago's quite a, progressive city. And
that's why I'm asking exactly. Yeah.
It's very, very different. And so I think a lot of people are curious about that. There's also a lot of misconceptions, that, every time you visit the doctor, is it really free? And it's no, I still pay, the equivalent of $20, $25, but it's not $300.
Is it $300 in Chicago?
I mean, yeah, once I had to take an ambulance, just for the ambulance, it was $2,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very different from what you used to. Because in France, for example, what my friends are asking about is the work-life balance, which is very unbalanced, at least in Paris. It's not as good as in Norway. And the gender equality is definitely something that my friends are interested to hear about, because I think in Latin cultures, we're still very the men's dominated culture. And for me, it was a big cultural crash to be you're a woman, so what? You're in Norway now, so you are equal to men. And I know it's not perfect picture, but I still think Norway is a front runner regards gender equality. So
I think when we live in a place like Norway, and we have all of our, basic needs met, and you do have this support, this safety net if something happens. And once you're in the system and you're really in the system, it works. It's hard to get into the system, but once you're in it, you're in. Then it's also, we also start seeing all of the problems along the way, right? So a lot of the kind of criticisms or things that people would want to improve in Norway are, of course, like the things that are required to get in. So it takes forever to get your bank ID, right? It takes forever to get your appointments. There's so many like things that you have to go around and around. You need an address in order to do file your paperwork and register here. But you also need to be registered to get a bank account in order to get an address, right? So there's all these problems of getting into the system. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. And that's some of the biggest challenges that I hear from internationals. But yeah, I think but once you're in the system, you're protected more.
What do foreigners complain about? It's interesting because most of my friends are French, so they complain about everything because they're French, or at least you know what I mean. Sometimes they're like, oh, oui, but they were complaining in France anyway. They would complain anywhere. But it's interesting for me because I feel like I've somehow a little bit what you described earlier in this discussion. I think I became quite Norwegian with all the years. I'm married with a Norwegian. I acquired the citizenships. I raised children in Norway. But I forgot a bit sometimes what was the frustrating parts when I arrived, also because I got used to them, which is positive. It means that people are able to adapt. But I'm curious to hear when you probably met people that have arrived for a shorter period of time than 14 years. What are the aspects that create frustrations, apart from the administrative part that you just explained quite clearly? Is there any other things that you hear as a recurrent comment among foreigners?
Yeah. So apart from the administrative stuff, which definitely
it's a pain point.
Yeah, could use some improvement.
Yeah.
I would say that there's two other things that I hear most often from the people that I meet in the international community, and also just from my followers who send me messages and stuff like that. The first is finding a job.
Okay.
And the second is finding friends and a network. And so with finding a job, I get a lot of questions, for example, like, what's the best way to do your CV and which, what should I say in my cover letter and all of these things. And I've been so hesitant to give advice because I think the problem is not in what's on your CV. It's that companies don't want to hire foreigners. And it's a massive problem in Norway. And I think, some of the stories that I've heard would shock you. I met this woman recently who had been going through several interviews with a company, and eventually she's American, and eventually she was in the very last stage, and they chose another person. And they said to her face, that they didn't hire her because the company was not ready to take risks at that point. Hiring foreigners is seen as a risk in Norway. And it's a very difficult situation. I've had friends who came here for their Norwegian partner, stayed for a year looking for jobs and just had to leave.
Yeah, exactly, because they'll never find it,
yeah. And I think that, I think that you can tell people all you want, make your CV one page or whatever.
One thing is still helping in terms of formulating yourself writtenly in Norwegian instead of English. There are things that I would help, I'd say, based on my experience. I've seen dozens of CV when I arrived, and then I started applying in Norwegian, and that helped. So I still think there is something there, but what you said is something I hear all the time in this podcast. Companies are not willing, and the big paradox is that there's a gap in terms of the need of qualified heads. A lot of companies in Oslo and outside need engineers, doctors, you name it. There's a lot of qualified foreigners here, but they simply don't build bridges between these qualified people and the available spots in the companies.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, you at least can give tips on formulating, your CV or something in Norwegian, but I don't speak Norwegian yet. And when you arrive in your first year, you're not going to speak Norwegian fluently. So, I mean, unless you're ready to wait, a few years until you speak the language fluently and then apply for jobs, that's one thing. But yeah, there's a lot of people here who are looking for opportunities. And the advice that we're given, that, we in the international community, because I was given this advice as well, is volunteer, aka work for free.
Yeah, but it's still a way to start a network.
Yes,
get a reference.
I just wish that it wasn't. Like I wish that you could just get a job first. And
just for me to understand, if I move tomorrow to Chicago, which is, by the way, a very nice city. I've been there last year and seen the Bean. I enjoyed a lot the museums, which were completely amazing. But anyway, if I move tomorrow to Chicago, am I finding a job easier than in Norway, you think?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I do think so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, I would say so. Of course, not. That's coming from me, who's not been in the position of being a foreigner in Chicago who's looking for a job, so I can't exactly say. But yeah, I would say so. That's my impression. But the other thing that people often say that they struggle with, that I've struggled with myself too, and that I think Unlock Norway has been in a way a response to, is finding my social circle and network. And I think that's a hard one in general. Moving to a new place and finding friends is hard. Finding friends as an adult is hard. And then you add on to that some things like the fact that Norwegians are very often friends with, their childhood friends, and they have their groups that are formulated, and it's hard to enter into an already established friend group. So a lot of those things make it very, very difficult to find your place.
Absolutely. And so how was your response? Did you create events in connection with this Instagram account? Like, one thing is digital, another thing is meet physically.
Yes, exactly.
Can you tell a bit about this part also?
So the very first event that I did was just kind of a spontaneous thing. I posted on Instagram, and I think I had, like, quote unquote, just 1,000 followers then. So I wasn't expecting much, like, turnout or anything, but I just said, like, hey, this Saturday I'm going for a walk along the Akerselva. If anybody wants to meet me, I'm starting at 10 at this place, and let's walk down the river together. And I was really, really happy that I think like 12 or 13
that's
people
so cool.
came. Yeah.
And did they know each other, or it was a lot of...
No, I think maybe like somebody came and brought their friend, and the other was like
Perfect.
a couple. So yeah, and it was just such a lovely time. And we walked along the river, and then we stopped at Blå and just got like some tea, coffee, beer, and we ended up sitting there for like 3 hours.
That's
actually.
nice.
Yeah, and it was just also so refreshing, because we were suddenly all in a place where it was like, wait, it took you 3 months to get your bank appointment. It took me 3 months, and we were suddenly like validating each other's experiences in a way that I hadn't had the group and connections to do before. So it was really, really special. And so after that, I started kind of experimenting with different types of events and community gatherings and stuff, from like a picnic to going to a museum together, and just seeing, things that I'm interested in doing, and seeing if anybody else wants to join.
Yeah. This is so cool, because then it means that you obviously you took to the brains, but also to the hearts, I guess. You create friendships, and it's so important when you start somewhere to have like, I need to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. But one thing that I think is really important is to not only say, oh, like Norwegians are cold, or, don't want to make new friends or anything like that. And since I've moved to Norway, what I'm trying to do is also see if there are, or what are the underlying values of, the culture of the people that I'm meeting that can impact that. So, one thing that I've struggled with, and that people struggle with, is finding Norwegian friends. And you can say, it's because they're all friends with their old childhood friends, right? And you can see that in a negative way. Or you can also see that Norwegians are very loyal, And when
true.
they do
You can
build,
flip it around, yeah.
yeah, and when you do
Establish a bond.
yes, when you do establish this bond, you can build a lifelong friendship, right? And so trying to kind of see things as not good or bad, but rather different.
So you're right, perfectly. And we all know that it's also annoying to walk around with your flag on your front head like you are suddenly representing for the whole culture. I mean, all the Norwegians are different, all French people are different, all Americans are different. So of course, yeah, you're right. And it's hard to generalize. And I think you're perfectly right. Of course, the culture defines a thing. It's a shape and it's where people move, but it's also very different from one story to another, right?
Absolutely. And I think people use this excuse of different cultures so often to divide people. And, oh, that person comes from a different culture, or our company's not ready to take risks because it's not a culture fit, right? But actually, I think culture in that way is one of the least dividing things, actually, because I can get along with somebody from, India, South Africa, from Argentina, from Turkey, and we can get along so well from completely different cultures, more than my neighbor in Chicago. He's
listening to us, Gabriella, be careful.
Yeah.
No, but I understand what you're saying. It's a very nice, I think it's a very nice and important word. Plus, I believe in terms of when you talk about the workplace, that if someone comes with another culture, this friction that can sometimes happen is only fruitful for new ideas and creativity. Of course, it's very human to want to work with people that are like you. I understand why. But it's not how you get better at things, right? It's not how you innovate or enrich. And
also, just because you do come from a different cultural background, as in a different country or region or something in the world, doesn't actually mean that you're that different.
No, we have 99% in common, right? I agree. Oh, that was a nice word. Hallelujah. Okay, I have a little quiz for you at the end. You are going on a mountain trip, and you are allowed only to take on your brødskive, gulost, eller brunost. What do you choose? Do not think too much.
Brunost.
Brunost. Oh, that's very Norwegian.
Yeah. On a mountain trip, you have to. Yeah.
You are going back from the mountain and you can stay 3 weeks in 2 cities, Ålesund eller Alta. What do you choose?
Ooh, Alta.
Oh,
Can it
really?
be in the winter, though? I want to see, I want to go all the way up in the winter.
And see the paintings?
Yeah.
And the Northern Lights?
And the Northern Lights.
And Santa Claus.
And Santa Claus.
Okay, you can bring one pupil to a date on that trip. I understand you have a boyfriend. I also have it is very hypothetical. Do you take Prins Haakon eller Erling Haaland?
Ooh, Erling Haaland.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Then you leave me with Prins Haakon. It's a good fit because
there we go.
I have a crush on him.
All right, double date.
Deal. Next episode, we have Haakon and Haaland with us in the studio. Thank you so much, Gabriella, for coming. All the best with Unlock Norway and Visit Norway and all your projects. Thank you also on behalf of the community for the important job you do. And enjoy your day.
Yeah, perfect, Cécile. Thank you so much for having me. And I just picked up a copy of your new book, Where Babies Sleep Outside.
Thank you so much, Gabriella.
I really look forward to reading it. And you have to sign it for me.
I will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Au
you.
revoir.
Have a nice day. Ha det.
Ha det.